Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson, and we're continuing our study of the Jesus parables in Matthew's Gospel, and we're right in the middle of the parable sermon in Matthew 13, where we have 8 parables given, 2 long parables and 6 short parables, um, 2 long, 1 longish, and 3 very short and 5 very short parables. Um, and we've looked at the 2 long ones first. The parable of the sower, which is about the way the kingdom grows and about soil, about the different ways people receive the kingdom. And then the parable of the tares, which comes, the long parable that comes after. But the explanation is not given until after he has delivered 2 more parables about growth. Um, So anyway, we're going to look at those 2 parables about growth today. So we have these two together, but we have the explanation separated out for later on. But Matthew 13 technically isn't one sermon, but two, because we have the parables that he delivered to the people, and then the parables that he followed up with his disciples after he had dismissed the crowds. So we have the parable of the sower and the parable of the tares, and then these two. He says, He presented another parable to them. I'm in Matthew 13, verse 31, saying, The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, which a man took and sowed in his field. And this is smaller than all other seeds. But when it is full grown, it is larger than all the other garden plants and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air can come and nest in its branches. And then he spoke another parable to them. The kingdom of heaven is like leaven, which a woman took and hid in 3 pecks of meal until it was all leavened. Okay. um, both these parables are short. They're really almost metaphors. I mean, that's how short they are. They're just really just meaningful metaphors, extended metaphors. And yet they are both about growth, the way the kingdom grows, and they both contain different facets of that growth. In both of these parables, with the mustard seed and the leaven, what we start out with is very small. You've probably seen a mustard seed. It really is about the size of maybe 3 grains of sand. And yet, a full grown mustard bush really is as big as a tree. It can get to be 20, 22 feet tall. And it really does host nests of birds in its branches. Uh, and the kingdom is going to be like this. It's going to start very small. It starts with Jesus calling a few disciples, and then some more disciples, and then some more. It's going to start in Jerusalem on Pentecost, and then it's going to spread out to all the world. And it has spread out to all the world. The most recognizable symbol in the world is the cross. The most recognizable individual among humanity on earth today is Jesus himself. And 1/3 of the population of the planet wears his name. I'm not saying wears his name accurately or faithfully, but they do. They call themselves Christians. 1/3 of all humanity. And all of humanity knows who Jesus is. 99.9%. Um, anyway, so it has grown just as he said. But there's more to this parable of the mustard seed, and that it becomes a home. It becomes a place where people belong, where people can live in safety, can raise their families the way birds build their nests. I mean, the image really does expand out the way this mustard seed itself has expanded up and out. Um, and so there's that facet to it as well. We have the small growing with the parable of the leaven and the lump. They didn't have yeast then back in those days. So when a woman, it was almost like sourdough bread. A woman would, if she wanted bread to rise, she'd take some of the bread dough that she had made with with flour and oil, flour and water, some combination thereof, maybe a little salt. And that which she did not turn into flat bread, if she wanted bread to rise, she'd take a pinch of the dough and leave it covered with a wet rag and let it ferment. And when it was ready, then she would take a larger lump of dough, 3 pecks. I mean, this is a big lump of dough. She's making a lot of bread. And she's taking that little pinch that she's let ferment, and she's kneading it throughout the lump. And it transforms the lump and makes the lump grow. It's a different facet of growth. The smaller agent is the agent of change because it doesn't, it's not just about growth, but it changes the form, the makeup of the bread itself so that it has air pockets, so that it rises. We know that's how bread rises. It has to have a leavening agent. A little leaven leavens the whole lump of dough. So we think about society as a whole, the human population as a whole, and all the cultures that are involved as the lump. And Christianity being this small but active agent, when it's spread out through the lump, it changes everything. And Christianity has changed everything. The world we live in, I don't care what continent you live on, has been changed by the legacy of Jesus, by the notion that there can be grace, by the notion that you can forgive your enemies, that you can live in peace, that you can that you don't have to take an eye for an eye. We have these concepts through Jesus and Jesus alone, and it has changed the world. It's changed the United Nations. It's changed everything in the world. I'm not saying it has eliminated sin. But the world we live in now is quite different from the world that Jesus was preaching in, and it's because he's changed it. And that's just a fact. Okay, so those are the first two of the shorter parables that appear as couplets. Next time we're going to talk about the pearl of great price and the treasure hidden in the field, which is told after the explanation of the wheat and the tares. We'll look at that next time. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes. I'm Barry Bryson, and we'll see you then.